Am I the a-hole for announcing at our reception that we're already married? From the start, wedding planning was a nightmare. We were so excited to begin venue searching and planning a celebration, but everything came to a halt when my fiancé broke his knee and couldn't walk for months. During his recovery, his brother got engaged. Suddenly, the family's attention shifted. They had an engagement party, got to tour venues, and go dress shopping. It felt like we were just the other couple. By the time my fiancé recovered, we realized two things. We didn't want to compete with his brother's big wedding, and a traditional wedding wasn't even in our budget. Instead, we decided it would be cheaper and more meaningful to elope in Greece with a few close friends and family than honeymoon there. We shared our plan with the family, and for 6 whole days, everyone seemed excited. Then his brother and fiancé announced their wedding date 1 month before ours. It felt deliberate. His brother has always had a thing about being first, and suddenly all attention shifted back to their wedding. Discussions about bands, linens, and flower girls took over every family gathering. It felt like nobody cared about our plans anymore. Things got worse from there. Only one member of my bridal party said she could make it to Greece, and even my mom told me she wouldn't come. It felt like his brother and fiancé were determined to upstage us, and we were left in the background. To make matters worse, my bachelorette party was a disaster, but that's a story for another time. By July, we were done with it all. My fiancé and I decided to have a private courthouse ceremony. It was something small, just for us, and it gave us a sense of control over our own wedding. We still went to Greece for our elopement in December, just the two of us, and it was perfect. When we got back, we used what was left of our budget to host a small reception for family and friends. During the reception, we shared our secret, that we had officially gotten married back in July. That's when everything fell apart. His brother's fiancé immediately blurted out, "What was the point of Greece then?" and spent the rest of the night sulking. My friends were quiet, some of them left early, and even my mom decided to head out before the night ended. Later, one of my bridesmaids called to tell me she felt hurt that she wasn't included in what she called the real wedding. She said things like, "Your day isn't about me, but I just wanted to be a part of it," and used a lot of therapy speak to explain her feelings. The thing is, she was included. She was invited to the reception and the bachelorette party, the two most intimate and expensive events I planned. If my family didn't feel excluded, why should she? My coworker later told me I was in the wrong, saying people made an effort to attend the reception only to find out they weren't important enough to be part of the real wedding. But nobody cared about our wedding plans when it mattered. They just felt entitled to them after the fact. For clarity, here's how it all played out. We had a courthouse ceremony in July, just the two of us. We eloped and honeymooned in Greece in December, also just the two of us. We hosted a reception for family and friends in January. We did have to uninvite a few people from Greece after my mom couldn't attend, but it wasn't personal. It was about making it the trip we wanted, not what others expected. So, am I the a-hole for announcing at our reception that we were already married? Okay, this is one of those situations where I can see why people were upset, but also I kind of get where the couple was coming from. They were clearly fed up with being sidelined and just wanted something for themselves. But announcing the secret wedding at the reception? That's a bold move. I feel like the timing could have been better. Maybe a private heads up to close friends first would have softened the blow. Okay, let's move to the next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she secretly dated and got engaged to my ex-fiancé? All right, buckle up because this one's a lot. I was engaged to my ex-fiancé for 2 years, and we had been together for 5 years in total. Everything seemed fine until about 3 months before our wedding. I found out he had been cheating on me. It was devastating, and I ended the relationship immediately. He moved away shortly after, and I thought I'd seen the last of him. I started to rebuild my life, focusing on moving forward. Fast forward to last month. My younger sister invited me to our parents' house for dinner, saying she had exciting news. When I arrived, she announced she was engaged to my ex-fiancé. My head was spinning as she revealed they'd been secretly dating for the past year. To make it worse, my parents had known about it for months and kept it from me, claiming they wanted to protect my feelings. My sister insisted that their relationship began after my breakup, but I felt deeply betrayed. I told them I wouldn't attend their wedding and left in tears. Since then, my parents and sister have been bombarding me with calls and texts, accusing me of being selfish and overreacting. They even had the nerve to ask me to be the maid of honor, claiming it was a chance to mend our relationship. And some friends thought I should attend to keep the peace, but others were appalled by the situation and supported my decision to stay away. Am I the a-hole here? Wow, this is such a heartbreaking story. It's infuriating to see how both her friends and family are gaslighting her into feeling like she's the problem. But it seems like the people in the comments really came through with some solid advice, and OP decided to take it to heart. Let's check her update. After reading your comments, I dug deeper into their timeline. When I confronted my sister, she eventually admitted that their relationship started while I was still engaged. She even blamed me, saying I'd neglected him by being too focused on wedding plans. My parents dismissed my feelings, saying people make mistakes and that I needed to be the bigger person. The situation escalated when my dad threatened to cut off financial support for grad school if I didn't attend the wedding. I felt trapped, but decided to go, though not for the reasons they thought. The wedding day arrived, and it was as picture-perfect as they'd hoped on the surface. But during my maid of honor toast, I couldn't stay silent. After giving a polite opening, I revealed everything: the cheating, the lies, and how my parents helped cover it up. The room went silent, and the atmosphere shifted completely. My sister turned pale, and the groom looked like he wanted to disappear. I walked out as whispers spread. Some family members followed me, showing their support, while others stayed behind in stunned silence. The fallout has been intense. My parents are furious, claiming I ruined the wedding and humiliated them. My sister tried to play the victim, but most people aren't buying it. Some family members have sided with them, but many are on my side, appalled by the betrayal. As for the happy couple, their marriage is already on shaky ground. The drama from my speech created tension, and some of their friends and family have distanced themselves. I've since gone low contact with my family and focused on becoming financially independent. It's been tough, but cutting out their toxic influence has been liberating. I'm proud I stood up for myself and refused to let them control the narrative. Sometimes the only way to heal is by exposing the truth, no matter how messy it gets. This story is such a whirlwind of betrayal, drama, and standing up for yourself. Honestly, I can't blame OP for refusing to stay quiet. The whole situation is mind-blowing. Your own sister and ex-fiancé, and your parents covering it up? That's a level of betrayal you don't just get over. Props to you for standing your ground and taking control of the narrative, even when the odds were stacked against you. It takes guts to face that kind of family pressure and still speak your truth. You're absolutely not the a-hole, and I am so sorry you had to go through this. Now, let's check out story number 3. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband he and his mother ruined our wedding day for me? I don't think I'm the a-hole, but I'll let others decide. Recently, I, 35, female, married my husband, male, 41. We both dislike being the center of attention, so we agreed on a small, low-key event. My only firm request was no photos. This wasn't a casual preference, it came from deep insecurity. My self-esteem has hit rock bottom over the past 18 months. I've gained weight, and while there are reasons for it, I'm not making excuses. In this short period, I've lost both parents and my grandmother. I've been through 2 job losses and experienced a miscarriage. Depression has been a constant companion, leading to comfort eating. On top of that, I was prescribed a new medication that has weight gain as a side effect. A year ago, I also suffered a severe ankle injury, which required 3 surgeries, the last one just 10 days before the wedding. I'm still in pain and can't walk properly. I didn't want photos of myself looking like this: overweight, in a medical boot, and struggling to stand upright. It would only amplify my insecurities and serve as a painful reminder of how far I've fallen. A few weeks before the wedding, my mother-in-law brought up the idea of taking photos at a local beauty spot. I politely but firmly declined. I even repeated myself, emphasizing that I was serious. My husband overheard this conversation, and later that night, I reiterated my stance to him. He assured me he was fine with it. The week before the wedding, the subject came up again with both my MIL and my husband. I made it clear, again, that I didn't want any photos. On the day of the wedding, my in-laws picked us up since I can't drive anymore due to my injury. After the ceremony, my mother-in-law suggested we stop at the beauty spot for photos. I said no. She ignored me, told my father-in-law to drive there anyway, and my husband just sat there silently. When we arrived, I felt ambushed. I gave my husband the look, hoping for support, but he said nothing. Feeling trapped and desperate to keep the peace, I reluctantly got out of the car, and the photos were taken. On the drive home, mother-in-law began showing me the pictures. I hated every single one of them. I looked like a mess, a woman in a dress and a medical boot struggling to stand tall. The sight brought me to tears, and I couldn't stop crying. Mother-in-law became upset, and the tension was palpable for the rest of the day. I tried to move past it, but I couldn't shake the feeling of humiliation. I ended up changing out of my dress early, just wanting to hide. Later, I told my husband that he and his mother had ruined the day for me. Instead of supporting me, he had let me down. And now all I could think about was those photos. He defended himself, saying he didn't realize I was so serious about not wanting photos. He added that they were only for his mother to keep and insisted he thought I looked beautiful. When I pointed out how he had failed to speak up, he accused me of overreacting. He even said I let him down by making a fuss over what he called a normal part of weddings. He told me I had upset his mother, who has her own mental health struggles, and needed to reassure her that she hadn't done anything wrong. I refused. I told him that both of them had completely ignored my one request, and that was unacceptable. He thinks I'm being unreasonable, but I stand by my feelings. Okay, I absolutely get why she's upset. She clearly expressed her boundaries, and no one respected them. She's been through so much, and asking for one thing, no photos, isn't unreasonable at all. I do feel for the husband who didn't want to upset his mom, but he should have backed her up more firmly. Anyway, after reading comments, OP posted an update. Let's see. After reading the comments about my husband's potential feelings, I directly asked him if he secretly wanted the photos, but said otherwise to appease me. He assured me he didn't care about the pictures his mother took, and having seen them, thought they were poorly done and not worth the distress they caused. He admitted that the only photo he truly wanted was a memory of the look on my face when we exchanged vows. He joked about strapping a GoPro to his forehead, but he doesn't need a picture to remember it. When I told him how ambushed I felt, it deeply upset him. He apologized for not speaking up and acknowledged how unsupported I must have felt. His silence, he explained, stemmed from fear of triggering Emil's mental health issues. I also apologized for letting my insecurities overshadow our day. He hadn't realized how much I was struggling, and I admitted I've been hiding the full extent of my feelings. We agreed to move forward. I won't hold a grudge against my mother-in-law. This is the first significant issue we've had. My husband plans to speak with her, but won't address my insecurities directly. He suggested asking her to delete the photos, but I know that would escalate the situation. What matters to us is the strength of our 9-year relationship, not one challenging day. While some may feel a wedding should be a magical, life-changing event, for us, it was simply about formalizing our commitment. I'm also seeking grief counseling to address my losses and insecurities more deeply. This is such a positive resolution. I'm really glad you and your husband were able to have an open conversation and come to an understanding. It's also wonderful that you're seeking counseling to work through your insecurities. It takes a lot of strength to face those challenges. Wishing you both all the best as you move forward together. Okay, let's see what's next. Am I the a-hole for uninviting my fiancé's work wife from our wedding? I, 29, female, am supposed to be marrying the love of my life in a few months. We've been planning this wedding for over a year, and it's been a beautiful but stressful experience. But there's one person casting a shadow over everything, and that's my fiancé's work wife. Let me backtrack a little. My fiancé and his work wife have been friends and coworkers for around 5 years. At first, I was honestly relieved he had a good friend at work, especially since his job can be demanding and a bit isolating. I tried to be the cool, understanding partner who wasn't bothered by how close they were. But over time, their bond became, well, it became something I just don't know how to handle. She is a huge part of his life. They text constantly, often late into the night about everything from work issues to little jokes. She knows things about him that I sometimes don't, and it stings to realize how much he turns to her for advice and laughs instead of me. My fiancé reassures me that they're just friends, that she's his work wife, and that it's no big deal. but it feels like she's gotten so close that I'm sometimes the one on the outside looking in. As we got deeper into wedding planning, she started chiming in with her opinions. She had suggestions about our venue. It doesn't feel like him. Our flowers. He's never liked bright colors, remember? And even my dress, mentioning offhandedly that she knew his style and could help me pick something he'd love. I tried to laugh it off, but it hurt more than I wanted to admit. Here I am planning my wedding, and I felt like I had to measure up to her view of who my fiancé is. Last week was our engagement party, and it was supposed to be such a happy day, but I kept noticing her glued to his side. I tried to join their conversations, but every time she'd bring up a work story or inside joke that left me feeling like a third wheel at my own engagement. Then, in one of the worst moments, I walked up just as she was saying, "You know, if you change your mind, you could always marry me instead." My heart sank. I didn't know if she was joking or half serious, but my fiancé laughed, brushing it off like it was no big deal. I couldn't just let it go. I pulled my fiancé aside later that night and told him how inappropriate her comment was. He looked at me, surprised, and said I was taking it too seriously and that she was just playing around. I felt like I was going crazy, like maybe I was seeing something that wasn't there, but how would anyone be okay hearing that from someone so close to their fiancé? The last straw came toward the end of the night. She had had a few drinks, and she came up to me asking if I was really okay with how close they were. She said something like, I can't imagine him with anyone else. It felt like a knife to my chest. I wanted to scream, but instead, I just walked away. Later, I told my fiancé I didn't want her at our wedding, that it was too painful to have someone there who clearly saw herself as part of our relationship. He got defensive, saying I was overreacting and letting jealousy ruin a friendship he cherishes. He even implied that uninviting her would damage his reputation at work. And now he's barely talking to me because he says I'm making him choose between his best friend and his fiancé. I don't know what to think anymore. I feel hurt, small, and like my feelings don't matter. My friends support me, but his friends think I'm overreacting and letting insecurity ruin our relationship. Am I the one blowing this up? Or am I right to want some respect and boundaries? Am I the a-hole for asking him to uninvite her from our wedding after everything that's happened? This is a really tough situation. I can totally understand why you feel hurt and like your boundaries are being ignored here. It's one thing for them to be close friends, but when someone is making comments like that and overstepping in your relationship, it's just too much. I don't think you're overreacting at all, and I can see why you would want her uninvited from the wedding. If he's really willing to put her before your feelings, that's a major red flag. You deserve to feel respected, and this situation just isn't healthy. Honestly, I don't think you're the a-hole here. Run, girl. All right, guys, we are going to read one more story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife to stop crying about missing out on our daughter's wedding? As the title says, my wife, 53, female, and I, 55, male, have 3 children. Now, let me say, I love all my children in their own way. But no child has ever given me a headache like our youngest. She's our wild child, got a college degree at 16, began working and saving up, moved to another state once she turned 18, got more college degrees, and lives a pretty nice life. I'm proud of her, of course, but she has always been our wildly independent, argumentative, intelligent little girl. She's the more social one, too. She's covered in tattoos, piercings, and always has funky hair. I'm proud of her, I love her, but she's always been our non-traditional child. She met her now husband when she first moved to that state. He's like her, tattoos and piercings up the wazoo. Non-traditional. He's a good kid. I like him. He protected her and has been by her side for a lot of things. I actually love him for protecting my daughter. She will be the first of our children to get married, so when we heard the news about their engagement, my wife was super excited. She started talking about wedding planning and all that girl stuff. They were both upfront about not wanting a wedding and just wanting a small party with mainly family and some friends as a celebratory thing. My wife was very upset and pushed at her until she reluctantly agreed to plan a wedding. Not even a week into wedding planning, they had a spat about floral arrangements, which led to her flying back home. She announced they had eloped and would be planning a small, intimate get-together in another city around Halloween. My wife lost it, and they got into a huge argument over the phone, which led to them both not speaking. My wife cries every time this situation is brought up, saying she missed out on her little girl's special day. After a few weeks of this, I finally snapped and said, "Why are you surprised? She didn't want a wedding in the first place. She's our least traditional child. I'm just glad we at least got the engagement announcement. Stop crying about it and wait till the other two get married, because they're the ones that will actually enjoy that wedding stuff." My wife called me a few names and has been avoiding me. I really don't mean to be an asshole, but she's the last child I'd expect to want a big grand wedding. I mean, for goodness sake, she's a nurse that does hair on the side and is also a practicing witch. That child makes no sense. I'd more expect the oldest to want the big wedding when he and his boyfriend eventually get engaged. It also just felt wrong that my wife tried to force it on her. Lay the brutal honesty on me. Do I roll over and apologize? Or continue to stick up for my daughter over this mess? I mean, I get why you're frustrated, but I think you came off a little harsh in this situation. I totally understand not expecting your daughter to want a traditional wedding, but your wife's feelings are valid too. She's grieving missing out on an experience that was important to her, even if it wasn't your daughter's choice. Instead of shutting it down with frustration, maybe a bit more empathy would have helped. I think a heartfelt apology could go a long way, especially to restore things with your wife. She just wants to feel involved in her daughter's life, even if it's not in the way she expected. I would not say that you are the a-hole, but definitely need to work on the way you talk to your wife. All right, everyone, that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.